Hi, I'm Omar Hinojosa and I'll make the analysis of The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. Written by T.S. Eliot, published in 1922 in the United Kingdom. About the author. Thomas Stearns Eliot was an American-born British poet, essayist, publisher, playwright, literary critic, and editor who was born in September 26, 1888 in Missouri and died in January 4, 1965 in London, England. He acquired the modernist current. About the work. This work combines the legend of the Holy Grail and the Fisher Kingdom with parts of contemporary society. It employs a lot of literary cultural allusions from the Western canon, Buddhism, and Indo Upanishads. And here's a little video about the explanation of this work.
The Wasteland is a poem of breakdowns. Psychological breakdown, the breakdown of marriages and relationships, of poetry and language, the breakdown even of an entire world. The carnage of the First World War had laid waste to Europe and made a mockery of the idea of civilization. After the war, Eliot's poem seems to ask, how can poetry respond to the mess that the world has become? First published in 1922, The Wasteland is full of people sleepwalking through their daily lives. The commuters travelling to work over London Bridge put the poem's speaker in mind of the swarms of tormented souls in hell. Once the young typist has finished her unsatisfactory encounter with her acne-faced lover, she simply smooths her hair back and puts a record on. Nothing to see here, nothing again. Nothing. Life has become mechanical, emptied of meaning. The epigraph from the Roman satirist Petronius, which opens the poem, tells of the Sibyl from ancient Greek mythology, who was doomed to eternal life, but not eternal youth. Trapped in her cage, she prefigures all of the metaphorical prisoners of Eliot's poem. When asked what she wants, the Sibyl replies, I want to die.
Hurry up, please, it's time.
Eliot's poem is full of cultural references to other, now long dead civilizations and their works of literature. There are nods to ancient Greek myth, to the age of Shakespeare, in amongst the depictions of the modern world. At one point we find ourselves in London's East End, in a pub where a woman is talking to her friend about her marriage. And then, suddenly, we're back to Shakespeare again. As the women are leaving the pub, their speech merges with the words of Ophelia, that doomed Shakespearean heroine who went mad and drowned herself. Perhaps, Eliot's poem seems to be saying, death is the only real escape from the wasteland. The Wasteland presents a highly eloquent account of despair. Its powerful vision of urban alienation spoke to a generation of young post-war readers. In doing so, it changed poetry forever. Eliot found a whole new language for poetry in the everyday world of motor cars and tin food, jazz records, pub conversations. He complained that one of the first reviewers of the poem had over-understood it, but really we're still seeking to understand it. We probably always will be. But then that's often the mark of a great work of literature. Like the characters in Eliot's poem, we can never truly leave the wasteland behind.
Theme of the poem. This poem is divided into 5 sections. The first, The Burial of the Dead, introduces the diverse themes of disillusionment and despair. The second, A Game of Chess, employs alternating narrations in which vignettes of several characters address those themes experientially. The third, The Fire Sermon, offers a philosophical meditation in relation of the imaginary death and views as self-denial. In juxtapoints influenced by Augustine of Hippo and Eastern religions. The fourth section, Death by Water, which includes a brief lyrical petition. And the fifth and the last one, What the Thunder Said, concludes with an image of judgment. This video can help us to understand the poem in a better way. In my point of view, it's a perfect summary. It's very complete and well explicated.
The Wasteland is a famous fragmented poem broken into 5 sections. Part 1, The Burial of the Dead, opens April is the cruelest month. Paradoxically, life grows out of death. A speaker, Marie, tells of being surprised by the arrival of summer. The perspective shifts back to a description of decrepit plant life in this dry, hot environment. In a dialogue, someone describes being given hyacinths. Madame Sosostris, a clairvoyant, turns over a tarot card, the drowned Phoenician sailor. The speaker sees people walking in a circle, then describes a procession of people on London Bridge. The speaker asks a man a series of strange questions about a corpse planted last year in a man's garden. Will it bloom this year? In part 2, a game of chess, a woman sits on a chair that looks like a burnished throne in an ornate room. Her hair spreads out in flames, which form into words. Someone begins to talk about bad nerves. The first speaker wants to go for a walk and then play a game of chess. They are preparing for a knock upon the door. Then another conversation between the speaker and someone named Lil, whose husband Albert had been in the war, sees Lil tell the speaker that she's taken pills in order to have an abortion. The speaker gives farewells. In part 3, the fire sermon, the speaker describes a broken landscape where everyone has left, then tells of Mr. Eugenides, a fig merchant from Smyrna, who asks the speaker to lunch. Then the speaker identifies himself as Tiresias, who can see the lives of people and will await an expected guest who turns out to be a pimply agent's clerk who sexually assaults a typist. The speaker describes mandolin music. Fishermen lounge near a beautiful church along the river that gives way to a dusty urban landscape. This part ends with something like a prayer or sermon. In part 4, Death by Water, the speaker tells of Phlebas the Phoenician in this short section. And in part 5, What the Thunder Said, the speaker refers to what has come before, then wonders about a third person that walks beside you. The speaker describes the falling towers of Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London, and concludes, unreal. Then describes a woman with long hair, tumbled graves, and an empty chapel. In a chanting tone, the speaker repeats a series of fable-like verses about thunder, which leads to a sequence spoken by someone fishing, including songs, poetry in English, Italian, and French, and a chant-like closing.
In my opinion, first of all, I need to tell that I couldn't complete the work because of the time, but after this, I'll continue reading the last 2 sections of the poem. I think Eliot made an amazing job with this poem. That's why this is one of the most important works of the modernist movement. The combination of styles between voices of satire and prophecy featuring, and the changes of time and location are awesome. I don't really like reading, but this work really appealed to me. I've never read anything about this, and now I'm amazed because of the literature in the past.